Hello and good morning. Hey! So I am actually on campus today. And for those of you who are new to this space, I am Nzali and I support Black millennial women in creating the life that they deserve while in Africa. So, today I'm just going to take you on campus with me. While we kind of just discuss some things. I recently saw, as we all know, the death of the young rapper Takeoff from the group The Migos. And funny enough, I think Takeoff, Quavo, Offset, those people are in my bracket, but not in my bracket, in the sense that those young people are people that my students introduced me to be quite honest. I'm just going to sit down. So, I know their music, but I wasn't introduced to their music like, you know, how I was with the TIs and everything. I wasn't introduced to their music through my own fruition. I was introduced to their music through my students, right? So they're a little like a generation right behind me. And so, but this video really isn't about him per se. I do send prayers for his family, but it's, to me, as a woman now living in Africa, West Africa to be specific, it really has given me the opportunity to look at this thing differently. And when I say to look at it differently, really what I'm talking about is I have had the privilege at this point for this not to be my experience, right? And when I say this, I mean the pattern. The pattern is someone gets shot, we make a rest in peace t-shirt, we light candles, we do a memorial for the first 1 or 2 years after they've died with family and friends and community, and then we move on in a very detached way. As a teacher, a former teacher in the U.S., the pattern is one of your students, family member, friend, or other student gets shot. You have a day of silence or a moment of silence as an announcement. The students who are affected mostly, they miss a few days of school, and then we're back to the same old with the same levels of violence. And so what I want to say is not probably going to sound good to a lot of people, but I've been looking at the common denominator, and a part of this is there is an expected and accepted level of violence from Black American men. And those Black American men, I'm not excluding those who are immigrants who have been raised in the States. And so I'm speaking about those who are born and raised in the United States of America. And, you know, I'll say this because I have lost a few family members actually, to gun violence. And it took me years to fully process the whole situation and to have some peace about it. And I know there are other people in my family who haven't gotten to that full space yet. So I get it, right? So I'm thinking I'm one person, a part of the Black collective in America. So imagine how many of us are in like a constant state of mourning because there's so many people. And I think there's a few myths around this thing that we really have to kind of address. The first one is that poverty creates violence in our Black American community. And I didn't grow up in the suburbs, right? And so when I look at my Black collective community in the place that I grew up, the women were holding things down. The women had disagreements, the women had natural conflict, but overall, it is not Black American women shooting up a whole bunch of people. in their own community. I'm not speaking about nobody else's community because I don't dwell there. I don't live there. I barely even associate there unless it's for work purposes. So I'm speaking about my own community. And we were in poverty, right? Most, in my childhood, the people I grew up were blue-collar people or right under blue-collar people. And so the myth we tell ourselves is that it's the poverty, it's the lack of resources in our communities that makes us act out. And now I live in West Africa, and these people seemingly have much less than the resources that my community in the U.S. has. And they are not killing each other. I've lived in villages where my neighbor was my student who was an orphan, and the community built a structure for those orphans to have a place to stay when their mother died. Those orphans were not shooting people. They were not stealing from nobody. They were not robbing nobody. They were not fighting every day in school. So I think we have to get rid of this myth that it's the poverty, right? I think the second myth that we tell ourselves is that it's the police brutality that is our biggest threat, and it's the aggression, right? Let us think about our communities. I know one person who has been killed by police brutality when I was younger. And every other person I know who has died at the hands of gun violence has been from another black man. That is the truth. And I'm sure if we all sit and reflect, and I'm speaking about millennials, people in my age category. I can't speak about my father's time because my father grew up in a different time. My father grew up in segregation. My mother grew up in segregation. My father never went to an integrated school. My mother integrated a school her senior year, right? So they lived in a different time. In my time, all the people I know who have lost their lives to guns are at the hands of another black man, not even a woman. So we have, and I'm just saying this because I've had a different experience. I live in a place now where I know if I get into an argument with a taxi driver, if I have gotten into a fight with a taxi driver, right? Fist fight with a taxi driver, and I didn't have to worry about losing my life. I live in a space now where as an educator, I don't have to worry if I get into a disagreement or my students and I don't see eye to eye, then one of them will come and shoot me in the afternoon. I live in a space where I don't have to worry about teaching students who are constantly losing family members left and right to things other than natural causes. I now live in a space where people don't even fight. It was something I had to accept. I said, Americans are very violent people. And in the American context, I live in a black community, so I'm going to say black Americans also can be very violent towards each other. Because, you know, we say we hurt the people we're in proximity to. Black people are in proximity to each other, so we're hurting each other. And my care and concern is in that space. Because I've seen it different. I've seen people who, quote unquote, are living in poverty. I've seen people who don't have, and they're not killing each other. And the thing that I think the difference is, before I get to the difference, there's another myth that it's because we have so much access to guns. I have always grown up in a space where guns were readily available, and I have not shot anybody. Never shot anybody. Guns right there. Didn't shoot anybody. So it's not the access to the guns, it's the mentality. That's the difference. Here in the 2 countries that I have lived in, but I'm specifically talking about West Africa because that's where I've spent the most time. People can get into an argument, and it is the expectation that somebody comes and breaks up the argument. I have seen men fussing and fighting on the streets here, and it's always an older man, not a woman, who comes in and calms things down. I have been in disagreements with people, heated disagreements, and people have asked me, or both the 2 of us who are in disagreement, oh, you people can't talk. Sorry, y'all. Something flew away. Oh, you people can't talk. Basically meaning you can't resolve it without getting to this heightened level of emotion. And sometimes that drives me crazy here because I'm like, we need to have this conflict, right? But at the same time, my heart is warm knowing that I can have natural disagreements with people because we're people. People are going to be in conflict. I can have natural disagreements with people and not have to worry about my life being taken. So now we look at Takeoff. Takeoff. These people arguing over a dice game and get to shoot. And you know how low of emotional intelligence you have to want to kill some fucking body, to want to shoot or put people in the space where somebody could die over dice. And it's not even a living thing. That's why I say it's a detachment, it's a mentality. I can't say we because I'm not a part of this. Black American men that I have experienced have no emotional intelligence. They don't know how to control their emotions, and they are so detached from other human life that you would think dice is enough to take somebody out of here. And I've seen people die for less. You know, in Ghana, I've told Ghanaians, like, some of the things I see y'all do, I know people who have died for less. And that's not anything to be proud of. People shouldn't die for less. People shouldn't die over dice. People shouldn't die because they lost a fist fight. People shouldn't die because you cut them off in traffic. People shouldn't die because you took their parking spot at the local grocery store. People shouldn't die because of $20. People should die because of jealousy. And so I really think that when we as a Black American community start evaluating ourselves, we're going to have to start really telling the truth about the situation. Our mentality is messed up. We don't see the value in each other, and people are too willing. It's too easy for people to take each other up out of here and then cry about it later. Because I done been to too many funerals. I done seen too many of my students go to funerals only for 3 weeks later they repeating the same behavior that got the other people to the funeral and in the casket. It's a lot. It's ridiculous, and I am not interested in any more conversations that don't have to do with us correcting us, because I'm not waiting on a white person to correct myself. I have internal monitors that help me self-correct when I need to. And that's something that we have to do. And again, you know, for those of you who are young women, who have children, you can leave. You don't have to participate in that. Like, literally, I live in a space where I don't worry about my friends' children going out to play. I'm not worried about them being shot by anybody. I'm not even worrying about them getting in too many fights, because children don't even fight that often in school here. Like, all of those threats of violence that we perpetuate within our community don't happen in other parts of the world. And I'm specifically speaking about Africa. So then that also lets you know, because we are our African ancestry, that also lets you know that we are not violent people. So you can't sit up here and say that Black people are just violent by nature. No, not by nature, but there's some mentalities that we have attached ourselves to. There's some energies that we have attached ourselves to, that we have accepted, and we have to course correct. And we can't lie ourselves into the correction. We can't lie ourselves into it. We have to be responsible for us. No white person has made those people who were at that that bowling alley pull that trigger. No white man made the person pull the trigger and shoot my cousin. Wasn't no white person around. So for those who are interested in having a different experience, whether you just want to live, work, or play short term or long term, there are other places in the world you can go. This is why travel is important. You travel, you live in other places so that you can have a different experience, so that you can start comparing and contrasting your life, so that you can open your mind and your horizons to a new mentality. I grew up thinking and feeling like, okay, if you're in conflict with somebody, it could get to the point where somebody getting shot, almost expecting that people get shot. Like expecting like, okay, if it gets too rowdy, shots gonna ring out, so I need to leave before it get too rowdy. I have never had that thought in Ghana. And Ghanaians don't have those thoughts. Nobody's worried about getting shot over freaking dice, a competition, even small amounts of money, even big amounts of money here in Ghana, people not dying over it. It's a different way of thinking, and I want our people to experience a different way of thinking, a different way of understanding and doing life. Yeah, so when you're ready to come, you're ready to have a different experience, I'm here. I will keep promoting traveling in the African space, and really just traveling in general. So if you're ready and you're willing, you can always find me on Instagram at Nzali Takes Africa. You can send me a DM, you can message me, you can comment below, you can subscribe, and we'll keep the conversation going. But yeah, all right, I love y'all. Peace out.